Max Olson, theathletic.com. Robert Griffin III right after Max, 365 Sports. Max, thanks for your time. If you're Chris Kleiman and Adrian Martinez is practicing and expected to be full health by Saturday, what do you do at quarterback against Texas?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's like you kind of want to go to that kind of chess match thinking here of like, what do you think Texas is least interested in seeing of those two, right? I mean, it's kind of a combination in some ways, because I think certainly what Adrian Martinez brings in the run game does really stress the defense. And, I think that the Texas linebacker play has been better this year, but certainly they're still susceptible to some big plays. So I think in a lot of ways, Martinez probably is a little bit more dangerous, but Will Howard just was so impressive against Oklahoma State. It's hard to bench a kid over that. Right. So I think it's a really interesting decision for Chris Kleiman. And also either way, you wonder if either guy throws a pick, you throw the other one in, right? I think it's in some ways it's a good problem to have, but this is a big kind of fork in the road for K-State to figure out as they, not only need to win this game to stay in the Big 12 race, but as they pursue a Big 12 title, kind of what's the right guy to roll with here.
Max, what did you think of the committee's explanation about TCU's worthiness of where they are in the poll?
Oh, yeah. Was there a good explanation? Did you hear one?
No.
I mean, it's what I expected, and I understand. Like, if you're a TCU fan and you're still kind of burned about what happened in the past with the playoffs, and I understand the skepticism at this point, and they rank you probably where you feared they'd rank you. I think all you can do is keep playing with this house money. None of us expected TCU to be in this position in year one under Sonny Dykes, and if you keep winning, that's really all you can control. I think the problem for TCU, like, it's not necessarily so much a perception problem, although we'll see how it develops in the next few weeks. The problem really is just the likelihood that there's going to be some very good one-loss teams coming out of the SEC and the Big Ten. And if TCU loses the game here, which I think they probably will at some point, I think it's going to be really hard to go undefeated in the Big 12 this year. How do you kind of get respect compared to those super, loaded, talented teams? I think that's going to be the problem, is just who are you being compared against here at the end of this? So for now, I don't worry about the ranking too much, but not too surprising that the committee would value Alabama over TCU, even if that's something I don't agree with.
Georgia and Tennessee, Max, obviously a mega showdown here. Looks like, depending on, Vegas, they've got Georgia as a pretty good favorite there, but I know there's more that goes into it than just that. There's a lot of interesting angles. Where are you looking as far as the dogs and the Vols go this weekend?
Yeah, I think that it's probably I think it's probably unlikely. I mean, it'd be so impressive, but it's probably unlikely that you're going to hold Tennessee under 30 points in this game. So I think it's going to be an interesting challenge for Stetson Bennett and this Georgia offense that is starting to kind of figure out who they like in the run game. And obviously Brock Bowers is exceptional. But you've been missing AD Mitchell, and it's going to be an interesting test. I think Tennessee's defense is probably a little bit underrated. And that's the test, I think, is just how does Georgia kind of keep up with them, and how do they get stops? I just think Hendon Hooker and the way that offense is designed, they're just so effective, and they're just so good at what they do. I mean, they just repped it a million times. And I think that this Georgia defense obviously is not as freaky talented as last year's team, but is still going to have some answers and some unique challenges for Hendon Hooker. I can't wait to watch it. As fun as Tennessee-Alabama was, I think this game does have a chance to be even better in some ways, just in terms of quality competition.
Yeah, Georgia's favored by 8 or 9 points in this game. Alabama by nearly 14 against LSU. So in Lubbock, did the teacher and Joey McGuire's got skins on the wall. I'm not trying to suggest he doesn't, but do you think the teacher was kind of better than the student in that game?
Yeah. I think that, I'm sure that was an important one to Dave Aranda and Baylor in a bunch of ways, not just, some of the stuff that went on at the end of last season and the people who switched sides and all that stuff. But certainly, Baylor needed that one for kind of their season and their trajectory here. So, I thought that was an impressive response from that Baylor team for sure. And, I think Texas Tech, on their best days, I think they're really dangerous. But really, Baylor, to their credit, did not let that be one of Texas Tech's best days by any means.
Max, TCU takes on Tech this week. Do you think that is in any way a trap game for TCU in that they're rolling along well? Tech just got it kind of handed to them and might be hungry for more. Of course, we don't know what they're going to do at quarterback if they roll out 3 guys again. But even still, this is not a bad Tech team like they looked last week.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think I've kind of had these last 2 circled for TCU. Is just really curious to see how they respond to games that you might easily write off as wins if you're just looking at the calendar. But certainly that wasn't the case last week in Morgantown. They got all they could handle from West Virginia, a team that you could talk about as, being one of the worst in the Big 12, but clearly they could hang with TCU. And that's just kind of a testament to the parity in this conference. And I feel the same way about this Texas Tech game. I mean, I like TCU to win it, but certainly we saw from Texas Tech earlier this season when they went to Stillwater, they were not nervous at all in that game and gave, Oklahoma State a hell of a fight in that one. So, yeah, I think that, if you make some mistakes and Texas Tech kind of gets to play the game they want to play, you're going to be in some trouble. And that's the challenge here for Sonny Dykes and TCU as you head into November. It's just how do you sustain this level of excellent play? I mean, you've got to stay healthy. You've got to have some good breaks, but that's just the real challenge with still some tough games ahead of you is just, can you keep playing like this week to week? And can you keep, making the right plays here in the fourth quarter in a games that get close?
Speaking of parity, K-State gets that big win over Oklahoma State and then turn right around and are dogs at home to Texas, who's coming off of a bye week. Just kind of wild, but, intriguing matchup here. Obviously, there's the Adrian Martinez and Will Howard situation that Chris Kleiman's probably going to keep close to the vest, but what do you make of the Wildcats and the Longhorns?
Yeah, I think the bye week came at a good time for Texas to get healthy. That was such a draining game that they played in Stillwater against Oklahoma State, a game that they, had opportunities to win and really just did not play very well in the second half and especially the quarterback play. And so it's going to be a fascinating moment here for Quinn Ewers in his continued progression and growth of just how does he take a performance like that, the worst of his career by far, and kind of take those 2 weeks to build and get better and come up with a plan that can defeat a K-State defense that I feel like it really is playing at a top 25 level. That's going to throw a lot at you. And they're, as a defense, they're far more than just what, Felix Anudike-Uzomah can do as a pass rusher. I think that it's a really pretty talented group. That was a very frustrating game for K-State last year when they went to Austin. I'm sure they want some revenge for that one. They really played really poorly in that game. And, this is a big one for Sark and just for, like, if you look at Texas's schedule, and it's funny, you alluded to Texas being favored, which is interesting because obviously Vegas and SP Plus and some of these metrics really like Texas. You look at the November calendar and like you can't say that Texas can't make the Big 12 title game if they went out here. But this is the week when you've got to start that here, right? You've got to play some of your best football here against K-State if you want to be that team that's going to come in and kind of be the spoiler in the title race.
Max, one more thing. You have your stop rate. It's a great read. Anything on there or among the teams on there that kind of does jump out other than Iowa State being highly ranked with that particular metric, but they just can't win?
Yeah, it's amazing to me. It's week to week here, and Iowa State goes and plays Oklahoma last week and loses in a close game, and still, the Cyclones have had a top 10 defense in terms of just getting stops and getting off the field. And just have been kind of let down by an offense that just hasn't figured things out this year. Yeah, that unit is playing really well and gives them a chance every week. They just, to have this 5-game slide right now is pretty brutal for this program that you knew they had to reload a little bit. And they just haven't been good enough in the run game, in quarterback and all of that. So, they're an interesting team. And, right now the top 2 teams in stop rate are Michigan and Illinois, and they're going to play in a couple of weeks. I think that'll be a lot of fun to see. Illinois has been unbelievable under Ryan Walters, their DC, who I think will be a head coach here pretty soon. And Michigan, they're an interesting team in terms of the whole playoff debate and where you slot them right now. But defensively, they've been better than anyone at being really consistent and getting a lot of stops and playing great defense.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Max Olson, theathletic.com, Thursdays at 4. with us on 365 Sports. We'll